My name's Joe Morotti. I'm a senior solutions architect at AWS, based in Columbus, Ohio, actually. Any Ohio people here? There we go. There we go. So today we're going to be talking about enhancing the customer experience using generative AI and Amazon Connect. And the reason we want to do that is let's talk about the customer experience now. So we've got Mary. She's our generic customer here. Something happens with maybe a service that she purchases from us or maybe a product that she owns. And her first inkling is going to be, hey, can I find this information out there somewhere? Maybe on some frequently asked questions on our website, or maybe in some sort of like manual that you have uploaded to your site. Well, lo and behold, she searches for, an hour and can't find anything by herself. So she goes, oh my gosh, I have to go and actually call the contact center. When she calls to the contact center, in this case, they have no idea who she is. They don't know what product she has. The agent's coming in completely blind. And she's having to, spend multiple iterations providing this agent the information, or in this case, a self-service bot, all of the information needed to say, hi, I'm Mary. These are my products, etc. So she eventually gets so frustrated that she just starts saying agent, 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 and just tries to get to a human. Now that human has to sit there and actually diagnose the issue. They have to, sometimes talk the customer down if the customer's very upset, etc. And we finally hit our resolution. And let's say this is almost an hour and a half after Mary had her initial problem. She tried to search it herself. She hit a chat bot, couldn't get the answer there, had to talk to an agent. And we are almost an hour and a half in, and she finally gets her resolution. So we've all probably been in situations like this with the contact center before, where you're upset because you can't fix it yourself. You call in and the bot is either not understanding you or it is not providing you options relevant to your issue. You finally get transferred to an agent, and at this point, you're really upset. And it was almost an hour and a half that you were upset, and finally you are happy. This is very important because depending on your business, sometimes this interaction is the first time your customer is interacting with your brand. So I work with insurance customers all the time, and one of the main things they say is this has to be foolproof because they only call us when there's a claim or when a policy renewal came through. And we have to make that a great experience because they could easily just switch on a dime. And a lot of these talks today covering generative AI, and I know I'm biased here, but I really think generative AI in contact center is the space where it's going to deliver the most value. And we're seeing this across a wide variety of different customers. These are just some quotes from Gartner that many customers are trying to put Gen AI powered voice bots or even just Gen AI powered chat bots. Went through already. And that at the executive level, they're doing that as well. And why is that? And that's because 46% of customers would rather go to the dentist than call customer support. This is not good, especially if you're trying to retain a customer. You're trying to maybe upsell a customer and get them to buy more of your product. And that's where we have our contact center as a service solution called Amazon Connect. So Amazon Connect covers the entire gambit of the contact center space from, hey, I'm wanting to interact with your brand over my preferred modality, whether that's voice, whether that's SMS, whether that's WhatsApp, whether that's email, helping out your agents that are actually fielding these calls so they're not starting right off at the beginning every single time a customer calls in. And then also looking at it from a macro level. I was literally just on a conversation with a customer out in the hallway before this, where they were saying they needed to identify what were the most common reasons customers were calling in. And they couldn't with their current contact center solution. And I wanted to preface kind of those different roles because generative AI is going to play a space or play in each of those spaces differently depending on what persona you are. And we're going to cover each of these personas and how generative AI and Connect can help your customers. So we have a wide variety of already pre-built, traditional AI ML capabilities, everything from like real-time agent assist, conversation analytics, self-service using Amazon Lex bots. And where we're seeing is that the range of automation that customers are looking to build depends completely on the use case. We have our highly structured use cases of, hey, I just need to reset a password. Do we really need to use generative AI to handle that? Or can just a traditional NLU engine identify that they're trying to reset a password and send them a link? But as you move towards the right, you start to get into more cases where there might be some decisioning needed. For example, maybe a return or a refund. Maybe a customer wants to return a product and they are a loyalty member. And let's say that enables them to return a product without a fee. There's got to be a decision criteria there of like, okay, this person is a loyalty member, so they're entitled to a different return than just a generic customer. Or highly fluid. Let's say you have an outage of some sort and everyone is calling your contact center and everyone's looking for ways to try to fix it, or you're just trying to find a way to have the customer understand, hey, an outage is occurring, we're working on it, etc. Or maybe in troubleshooting, like, hey, try this first, try this next. That's a highly fluid conversation. And the reason this is important is traditional NLU models are great, but they don't always consider the way humans talk. So for example, this is a insurance use case. Customer just calls in and right off the bat says, oh my gosh, my entire basement's flooded. If you don't have that training data given to the NLU to say, hey, this person's trying to make a claim, it's going to come back with that very frustrating, we've all heard this, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. You can say things like make a claim or make a payment. But it also, as you start to get down the conversation, so in this case, like, we've properly identified the customer wants to make a claim. Now we want to understand what portion of their home was damaged. And, we say, hey, can you provide what portion of the home was damaged? And I say, I don't know what it's called. It's the part where the gutters connect to the ground, for example. Our NLU engine is given things like downspout, window, things of that sort. So it's going to say, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. You can say things like plumbing, windows, or roof. So that's where we're seeing both a combination of NLU and LLMs, as well as just LLM-driven conversations. So in this case, oh my gosh, my entire basement flooded. We are letting the NLU try it first. Are you able to identify it? If not, we're going to lean on an LLM, and in essence, our prompt is going to say, hey, you're a call center routing agent. These are your potential intents. What did this customer say? And in this case, the LLM is going to say, oh, well, they're saying their basement's flooded. They need to start a claim. NLU engine, start the claims process. Same exact thing for that information gathering where I said, I don't know the thing that connects the ground and my gutters. And the LLM's able to jump in and say, okay, well, I know downspout is one of our potential slots here. So I'm going to tell the NLU engine in this case, hey, set it to this. So we're still going to see this kind of playing back and forth between more of a traditional NLU engine. So in that range of AI automation, imagine that being on the left, to more of an autonomous conversation. So let's say now, instead of an NLU engine, we're putting an LLM agent directly interfacing with the customer. So let's see how this conversation unfolds. So the customer says, oh my gosh, my entire basement is flooded. And the LLM agent knows, okay, these are the different types of actions that I can take. And it says, okay, you need to start the claims process. And the API spec that you gave me told me that in order to start a claim, I need the policy ID. So the LLM agent is going to say, sure. And in this case, you're actually adding some emotion into it as well. Like, I'm really sorry, that sounds frustrating. We should start the claims process. All right, so now your customer's saying, well, I don't know where my policy number is. So your LLM agent can also have access to your knowledge repository as well. So maybe your frequently asked questions, maybe your SOPs that your call center agents have. And it says, okay, well, it doesn't match make a claim, check claim status, make payment, or an escalation. Let me see if this information is in the knowledge I've available to myself, and then give that back to the customer. So in this case, you see that the LLM agent is saying you can find your policy number on the Any Company app under My Policy. And customer is now really, really frustrated because they realize that their policy lapsed. So now they're saying, hey, I just want to talk to a person. And my policy ID is 123456. So at that point, the LLM agent says, okay, we're at an escalation point. I'm going to move it over to an agent. But during that conversation, we picked up a few things. One is that we saw that they wanted to make a claim and their policy lapsed and their policy ID is 123456. We already have all of that information. So why not pass that off to the agent, where the agent then says, hi, John Doe, greeting the customer. It seems like you wanted to make a claim, but now your policy has lapsed. And in this case, they know it's policy 123456. Let's chat. So that's where within Amazon Connect, we have this capability called Queue and Connect. And Queue and Connect covers these two different personas here, where both from a customer service perspective, as well as the agent perspective, because improving the customer experience isn't necessarily that self-service scenario I kept providing. I know that's kind of the go-to for that, but the customer's experience is also based off of what the agent has at their disposal as well. Do they know already who this customer is? Do they have an idea of what products they have? Do they have an idea of, for example, like something they might have done? I'll give a real example. Customer that I work with, they are a banking institution, and in their call flows, they have a way to identify actions such as someone ordered a new debit card, so that when they initially call into the call center, it says, hi, Joe, are you calling about your debit card that you ordered? Bringing that personalization in so that then they feel, hey, they know who I am, they know what I'm doing, and yes, it is about my debit card, I can't activate it. So let's talk about the customer experience with Queue and Connect. So Queue and Connect allows you to build out bots now within the Connect console. So previously you had to go into the Lex console, build a Lex bot, connect your Connect instance to that Lex bot. But now all of that is integrated into the entire Connect UI, where you can build out, in this case, a Queue and Connect bot, all within the Amazon Connect experience. So how does it actually work? So Queue and Connect works by first identifying the customer issue. So in this case, they're saying, I'm supposed to pick up my rental car in 2 hours, but I need to cancel. Will I be charged a cancellation fee? You could probably see how a traditional NLU engine would fall over on itself from there, because they're saying, hey, they're trying to pick up a car, they're trying to cancel, and they also want to know a cancellation fee at that point. But because this is an LLM-powered intent classification, it's able to say, okay, they need to understand, or that they are looking for if they are going to be charged a cancellation fee. Now, there might be some personalization that comes along with that. What type of customer are they? Bronze, silver, gold, just a generic customer? Because that might make the decision on yes or no whether they are charged a cancellation fee. And in this case, it's doing a knowledge search where it's looking into the cancellation policy, and it's looking based off of what the customer status is. Okay, are they eligible for a cancellation fee? And you see that Queue is asking, in this case, provide a response as an agent using the customer status and information from cancellation policy.x. And in that case, Queue responds back with, in this case, like, yes, you are eligible for no cancellation fee because you're a gold member. And enabling Queue and Connect is very straightforward. It's just a toggle on a bot that you build within your Amazon Connect instance. Now, Queue and Connect from a self-service perspective covers both the customer side as well as the agent side. So you see here on the left, this customer is asking, like, please explain dwelling coverage and how it's different from personal property coverage. And in this case, it's going to look into its knowledge base, and then the LLM is going to give a response based off of the context that was provided to it. But we also have the agent side, and I'm going to talk about this in a few slides. Whenever you talk about Gen AI, you always talk about guardrails and risk. Every company is terrified to put any sort of Gen AI bot out there without some sort of restrictions around it. Because there have been stories in the media around, different litigation where someone's put an LLM bot, customer asked something, LLM responded back, and the company says, no, that's not true. And the customer said, well, your bot told me it was true. And there's been instances where some folks have gone to small claims court over things like this. And within Q and Connect, you can add those guardrails to filter different things. So for example, like PII, maybe you don't want customers' PII to be sent back to the LLM. I call in and I say, hey, my name's Joe, my SSN is this, and I need to start a claim. We don't want that sent back to the LLM, the SSN portion. So it will actually filter out PII for you before it sends it back to the LLM. But also think about guardrails controlling what the LLM can talk about. So for example, blocking undesirable topics. In this case, someone is asking, which stocks should I invest in? You don't want your LLM to say, hey, based off of the current S&P 500, it's a total toss-up, but I say buy. We don't want that. So you have the ability to take undesirable topics and tell Q, do not respond to these. So I work with financial services customers. Financial advice is always like the number one. But you can also use it to kind of scope in the topics that your LLM's able to talk about. And then also hallucinations using contextual groundedness. So we all have seen LLMs hallucinate before, and we all think, where in the world did it get this data from? So within a guardrail, there's this concept of grounding. And grounding is comparing what the LLM's output is to the context that was provided to it. So think about in that RAG scenario where I have a knowledge base of SOPs, I'm sending that back to the LLM, and the LLM just makes something up. It is going to look at what was provided from the documents, compare it to the LLM output to make sure that it is true. All right, so let's show you some different demos here. So this is just me in the Connect console showing you, but I said, how do I file a claim? And you see that it says to file a home insurance claim with any company you can. In this case, this was just a document in S3 that I pointed to. And it was able to do a search over that, add it as context, and send it back to the LLM. But I also want to show you how NLU and LLM engines can play together. So in this case, I have a Lexbot, and I'm saying a tree has fell on my house. I need to get covered for damage. And you see that our intent was identified as gather FNOL information. So if you're not in insurance, FNOL is first notice of loss. It's just preliminary information you're grabbing. Traditionally, if we didn't have that phrase in our training data, the NLU engine would have came back with that, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. But in this case, an LLM is helping, in this case, say, hey, this is probably about a claim. You need to go to this intent. Same thing when it comes to information that you need to collect in order to self-service the customer. So in this case, what portion of the home was damaged? And I say, my whole dang top of my house is gone by the wind. Most NLU engines would fall over itself and say, sorry, I didn't get that. But in this case, we're relying on the LLM to say, okay, our possible values are roof, plumbing, downspout, et cetera. And it identifies that damage in this case is roof. And then you see in the second turn, the bot asks, please describe any injuries that occurred during the incident. And the customer said, I got hit in the head by something and I feel a little bit dizzy right now. And that's aligned to concussion. We are relying on the LLM to help, in essence, disambiguate without asking the customer for additional information. And with Amazon Connect, everything that we're doing over the voice modality can work with other modalities as well. So in this case, it's SMS. This is actually me chatting back and forth with a Connect contact or a flow in Connect, where I did an outbound proactive notification of like, hey, reply one if you want to chat. I clicked one, and you see very similar to the previous screens that I was showing you. I was trying to be as non-specific as possible with my responses. So I said, well, I went to my gosh darn basement and the whole dang thing was filled with water. Is that water or is it that flooding? The LLM was able to determine which one it should have been. And then please describe any injuries that occurred during the incident. I said, no one got hurt. So the other thing the LLMs are great at is with those kind of like weasel words we all put in there when we're talking, like the uhs and the ums, like traditional NLU engines could fall over themselves because they're going to see as part of the utterance and it might confuse it. So let's actually show a quick video of what this would actually look like. And I'm hoping the audio goes through. Okay, so you can't hear it here, but you get to take advantage of the latest text-to-speech models offering human-like conversation voices. And in this case, we're greeting the customer. We're saying, hey, Terry, thank you for being a valued customer for the last 10 years. I am Martha, your virtual assistant. And you see that it's proactively asking them about something they might have done in the ecosystem. So in this case, looks like they have a bill coming up. Is this about your bill? Yes. And I got this text about changes to my credit. And I wanted to know what happened. So the LLM-powered capability says, sure, Terry, I'm happy to help you. First, let's get that bill paid so you don't have to worry about it. For your security, please say or press your PIN or your account number. So Connect allows you to either say it or use DTMF, so actually just typing in the numbers to allow for busy areas, things of that sort. And you see at that point, it's making a call. So this could be a tool call to an API. In this case, it's checking their balance. Hey, your current balance is $292. Would you like to pay with this account? And they say, no. Can you actually use the account ending in 5678? The LLM sees all of the different accounts that it has available to it, and it says, sure, I can make that, use that existing account, and then process it. But before it does, they go another sidebar. Hey, what's my APR? What happens if I only pay $50? And at this point, it's able to meet the customer in that conversation where they're at. So they don't want to make a payment, and they're kind of going off on their own. Traditional conversation flows would kind of fall off at that point. It would say, sorry, do you want to make that payment or not? But because we're using an LLM to lead this conversation, we're able to jump back around and meet the customer where they're at. So that was the customer side of it, but we also have the supervisor side as well. So Q and Connect allows you to, as an agent, ask questions about your knowledge bases. So, for example, you might have SOPs for your contact center, and you have a new agent, and they don't know all of the answers right off the bat. They don't know what the SOPs are. With Q and Connect, you actually get an embedded AI assistant in their workspace so that they can type questions while they're talking to the customer. So in this case, the agent's asking, show me the prices, and it's providing different solutions. And in addition to the solution, it's also providing those sources as well. So maybe I see a response and I want to dig into the actual document itself where it got it from. I can just click it from within my workstation, brings me right there. That also works while the customer is talking as well. So in this case, it was able to detect that there was a transaction issue. Automatically. So the agent didn't actually have to go in and type that in. What the customer actually said was passed to the agent assist capability in this scenario, and it was able to identify, hey, they're asking about transactions. Or for example, like if I come in and I say make a claim, most likely in the agent assist, it will come up with, hey, you probably need to walk them through the claims process. Also with this, you also get generative AI guides as well. And when I say guides, that means, okay, for review transactions, I'm a brand new agent. I don't know how to review transactions. If I click on that review transaction button there, I will be brought to a step-by-step guide that says, here's the things you need to collect from the customer, and here are the things you need to do in order to get that information. So we can't forget our contact center supervisors and the business. What are our most common call categories? What is actually happening on these calls, etc. So within Amazon Connect, we have a capability called Contact Lens. And for each conversation that goes through Connect, whether it's through text or through voice, it pulls up different metrics for that conversation. So you'll be able to look at what was the customer sentiment throughout? How did the customer sentiment change over time? Who was the primary speaker on the call? If there's any screen recording as part of this effort, you also get the screen recording of what the agent was actually doing. You get the transcripts, categories, and highlights. So think about being able to look at a conversation back and forth between an agent and a customer and seeing, Was it positive or negative at this point in the conversation? But also identifying different categories. So categories either that you define or that you're hoping the LLM will help derive. So think about, like bank transactions, making payments, being able to identify what the actual category was. And then also generative AI powered post-call summaries. So actually seeing what happened in the conversation. Way too many people spend time reading these conversations to figure out what happened on this call. But you also get a 360-degree view of your contact center. So you get your average call handle time, but I really want to point out the contact categories. So what are people actually calling in about? Whether that is pre-built categories that you created, or you're relying on the generative AI portion to identify new trends. Like, hey, we're seeing a ton of new claims come in, something from customers in Florida. We might need to look into this. And lo and behold, there might have been a weather event in Florida where a lot of policies are written. And I could probably talk 2 hours about contact lens, but a lot of different capabilities that are in here, both more traditional AI ML. So think about, your sentiment analysis, theme detection, but also some Gen AI powered capabilities as well. So I will pause there because that was a lot of information. But really what I wanted to show you was that generative AI in the contact center space, whether it's voice or text, there's a lot of opportunity here. These things are trained on billions and billions of parameters, and they're built to have conversations with customers. And with Amazon Connect, you're able to build out those experiences and be led by LLMs at that point and improve the overall customer experience. All right, well, I put my email information and my LinkedIn there. Feel free to connect with me. I love having these types of conversations, either contact center or Gen AI, and hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you for taking 30 minutes out of your time for me.